Hello tanks and tankettes, and welcome to this viewer game courtesy of Tennis Fencer 91 here, who is in the AMX 105, the new-ish French tier 10 light tank. And this, if you may have spotted from the little symbols next to the tanks, is actually a ranked game. Now I'm not going to talk too much about the specifics of the ranked games in World of Tanks generally, and to be honest, I haven't even played them myself. They don't hold a whole lot of appeal, but I have watched other people's videos on them. In fact, Quickie Baby did a video yesterday, as of me recording this, where he talked about his thoughts on the season so far, now that it's about halfway through, I think. However, what I can do is I can talk about World of Tanks ranked games in the context of how ranked games work for World of Warships, and how for tanks they seem to have repeated, they seem to have specifically brought in one of the things that was a bit more controversial with warships, and they don't seem to have other things that actually make the ranked seasons in warships feel a bit more different and a bit more fun. Now, the basics of it is that you win ranked games, you get chevrons, you go up through the ranks, and if you do well enough you get the war bonds, and the war bonds give you the improved equipment, which I'm sure you all know about by now. So there's a point to it. There's a point to getting these war bonds and to getting access to this improved equipment. And I won't go into that side of things because other people have more eloquently covered it than I, but I do certainly think that it's problematic that the best players are going to basically get access to equipment that gives them not completely insignificant stat buffs to their tanks, which are just basically straight up buffs. I did speculate prior to the actual beginning of the season that there would be kind of like an upside and a downside, as we have with the super equipment that you can get in World of Warships, where you have to give up something really useful in a slot to be able to then use that improved equipment. So for instance, you would have to give up the module that gives you a more accurate main battery in order to get an extended speed boost, for instance, or to be able to lay down smoke for longer. You know, stuff like that. There's a positive and a negative. You're having to give up something useful to use that improved equipment. But that's not the case with tanks. And I did even wonder if it'd be something like, well, you get improved equipment, but it takes up 2 equipment slots, you know. But no, it's nothing like that, unfortunately. So that's been a bit controversial just in of itself. But the whole structure is, well, I mean, it's tier 10 only, and then that's about it. They are basically standard games, and the real difference lies in the fact that the rewards eventually lead to something that you might want to get. Now in warships, the ranked rewards, well, the immediate rewards are tied to the level that you get in the ranked seasons, and if you get to rank 1 in a ranked season enough times, there are now 2 different reward ships available, which are problematic in their own right. They are some of the strongest ships tier for tier in the game. You've got the Flint, which is an Atlanta, and can lay down a US smoke screen, so it's really long-lasting smoke that you can lay a big cloud of, and you've got a very fast-firing ship which has excellent AA and generally speaking the ability to create your own cover in open water for a ship like that is incredibly powerful, and it's also got better torpedoes than the Atlanta as well. So it's pretty much just better than the Atlanta, and it's very strong, and it's got a very good global win rate. Then they introduced the USS Black, which is a tier 9 version of the Fletcher. So again, a version of an existing ship, and that is just ridiculous because you have a radar destroyer. You can radar people from stealth, and they actually I think have twice now nerfed the radar range, but it's still really powerful and pretty much unarguably OP. So that has had its own issues in warships, but you have to have multiple ranked season wins essentially, and I think it's probably somewhere about the same in tanks, in that it's going to require getting a lot of bonds to get the improved equipment. So it's not going to be easy to get these things that are straight upgrades on their, you know, regular counterparts in tanks, equipment, and warships. It's a premium ship, but the rewards themselves are a bit problematic. For me, what is off-putting probably most overall, though, is that, well, they've copied some of the sins of warships. Now, what they did for the first couple of seasons was that it was just the winning team that advanced, basically. Much like the Chevron system, you've got stars for winning games, and I think as you progress down towards rank 1, or maybe actually up towards rank 1, I think it requires more stars to jump each rank. So for the majority, it's something like 3 stars to advance to the next rank, and if you lose a game, you lose stars. Now what they did was they then implemented it where, well, if you lose a game but you're at the top of your team, you don't lose any stars, you don't drop back in effect. And in principle, it's not a terrible idea, and they've basically done this in tanks as well. It's the top 3 players on a losing team don't lose a chevron, I believe, or is it they actually gain a chevron? I'm not 100% clear on that, but either way, they don't lose progress. And the reason why this becomes problematic is that it's not promoting team play. You know, the whole idea of ranked games is it's supposed to be more competitive, team-focused play, as opposed to random battles where everyone's just herpa-derping around and doing whatever. And so it appears to be problematic because it's actually, instead of promoting cooperative team play, instead of promoting a win for the team, it promotes more selfish play, and it's basically going against the whole idea of more cohesive team play. And it's actually worse for the tanks ranked battle because it's not just being on the winning team, you have to be in the top 12 or 15 people. And that's one of the big things with warships. The teams are actually smaller. It's 7 versus 7 rather than the just fairly standard 15 versus 15. In fact, well, obviously the standard in warships is 12 versus 12, but it's more focused gameplay, and the maps actually work differently because the cap circles are in different places. And so they force the teams together. You have to work together, you have to focus fire, you have to work as a cohesive group. And tanks doesn't have any of that. The maps are completely standard. It's basically standard 15 versus 15, and it's only the rewards that are different. The actual mechanics of playing the game, it doesn't seem to be designed to encourage team play particularly, and it even rewards passive play. This is one of the things Quickie Baby was talking about particularly, is that the people on a losing team, like instead of maybe having a situation where people are then going to fight harder to try and turn it around to a win, what they will do is instead they will use their team as meat shields to stay alive longer, and actually then try and get more damage, so that therefore they can be at the top of their losing team and not have their progress reduced. So the whole design just inherently works against promoting team play, and it sort of does that with warships as well, where if you end up with a group of people that you can see are just not working together, there's no incentive to actually try and carry, to push harder, to actually do more and be better. Instead, the incentive then becomes to be selfish, to do more for yourself, to get more damage, to get more kills, and not actually worry about, is this helping us win or not? And therefore you don't lose any progress on your progression through the ranks. So it still needs some work in warships, and then they seem to have basically taken the worst bits of warships and made it even a little bit worse for tanks, and not had any changes to the structure of gameplay itself. So although this is the first season of Ranked in World of Tanks, and it's entirely conceivable that for later ranked seasons that things will change, because that happened with warships. They've changed things several times as we've progressed through the different ranked seasons. You'd think they would have learned from warships ranked coming into doing ranked battles for World of Tanks, and Wargaming don't seem to have done that. And so we end up with this game design where it doesn't really promote good team play at all. And I'm sure you could also, if you were feeling very cynical, comment on the fact that there's a lot of premium rounds going around, and that it's actually fairly expensive to play through ranked, although, again, as Quickie Baby noted, as you do with warships, as you progress through the different ranks, there are rewards you get for doing that, including just outright payments of credits and credit boosters. So it's a start maybe, but it just feels really disappointing that they haven't learned from warships, despite there having now been multiple seasons of ranked games in warships, with another one that's just about to be on the way. And it's not something that really, like, I have absolutely no incentive to jump back into tanks to play this specifically. Now, there is one thing they have avoided from warships, which is probably the most controversial, if I can say that, thing about ranked in warships, and the fact that you're playing with tier 10. Okay, you've got to have played a certain number of battles to get to tier 10s, but more importantly, there are no premium tier 10 tanks. I mean, there are no premium tier 10 warships either. But all the warship seasons so far have been, I think, between tier 6 and tier 8. And there are multiple premium ships across those tiers. And for some of those tiers, the premiums are actually the best suited ships for the ranked games. Now, having the World of Tanks ranked games be at tier 10 completely avoids those problems. But for warships, that remains an issue. It particularly was last time when we had tier 7, and if you happen to have a Flint already for that point, you know, that was very, very useful. But we also had ships like the Belfast and the Scharnhorst were very strong in ranked. I think the Błyskawica was very well regarded as a destroyer for ranked, as was the Sims. Not particularly powerful torpedoes, but a good gunboat, and it could, of course, lay US destroyer smoke, which is very useful for the team. Yeah, that's, you know, having said all I've said about warships ranked feeling a bit better overall, it's not without its flaws. It still has issues that need to be addressed. And maybe the thing about premium vehicles in particular is more down to, I wouldn't say there are that many truly overpowered premiums in warships, but there are certainly some that are very, very competitive for their tier. And then for the changed gameplay, the more focused gameplay of ranked games, and how the actual the maps function differently with the differently placed capture circles, suddenly some of the qualities of those premium vehicles become extremely desirable, and it all starts to look, maybe, if you're feeling cynical, a little bit like it's a ploy to sell more of specific premium ships. So, yeah, neither game has it perfectly yet, and maybe the two teams working on these things from separate sides of the aisle will be able to bounce things off each other and come up with solutions that maybe the other side hadn't thought of. And so maybe the fact that we now have ranked in World of Tanks will just be a good thing for warships, and vice versa, that they will end up improving each other's game modes, even though they are inherently different games in a lot of ways. But like I say, for tanks specifically, it's early days, so we'll see how it works out. Now, this looks like it's going to be a draw. There's only 40 seconds left. That's another thing warships has going for it. It's incredibly difficult, if not almost impossible, to get a draw in warships these days, especially with ranked games. I think you'd have to have the last two ships killing each other at precisely the same moment, or somehow ending up with exactly the same number of victory points, and the ticker on that going to 1,000 at exactly the same moment. So yeah, like it's really hard to get a draw, so you've always got that clear winner and loser. But I think because of maybe the more passive nature of tanks ranked battles overall, there's no guarantee that you won't have situations like this where it is a draw. It's not like the team is going to be fighting over a central cap circle or a centrally placed couple of can't even say the word, cap circles every time. So Yeah. Now, in a draw, I don't know what happens. I don't know if it's like the top 3 of each team or if just nobody progresses or loses anything. But either way, that was a waste of 15 minutes for everybody involved in terms of actually progressing at all. And because Tennis Fencer here, I mean, he did very well with the spotting. He basically helped his team win that flank that they were on, over 6,000 spotting damage, and he did a couple of thousand damage himself on top of that. But ultimately, it wasn't enough, and it came down to being that very static game at the end, because neither side wanted to take the risk to push in to maybe then concede the defeat. And I just think, you know, maybe 15 versus 15 alone for Tanks ranked games, maybe it's too many, I don't know. Would 10v10 have been a more focused experience? Or would that not really work with the maps in circulation? Maybe if they had like warships and they actually changed the map modes specifically so that there's always one cap circle that you're fighting over. But anyway, so yeah, World of Tanks ranked games, there does seem to be significant room for improvement. I'll link in the description that Quickie Baby video, because I actually found it quite interesting to listen to his analysis, having gone through to the general rank. Yeah, it does not hold my interest at all. And having said everything I said about Warships ranked games, I've never even gotten to rank one myself, because invariably after like 3, 4, 5 dozen games, I'll get so far and then I just stop playing. I just get to a point of getting frustrated, and yeah, so even though there is the prospect of very good reward ships at the end of it, it's not enough to keep me going against some of the teammates. And I've heard anecdotally of people having to play hundreds of games in a ranked season to reach that first rank, and almost but not quite getting to the first rank over and over and over, and just dropping multiple ranks and then having to claw their way back up. And I just don't have the fortitude, the patience to go with that. I would just get frustrated, and so I usually walk away well before that point. And it almost certainly would be the same for Tanks as well, but it just seems to have so many more flaws in the mode as it is at the moment. So anyway, that's some thoughts on ranked and how it compares to Warships ranked games, and undoubtedly with the new season coming up, we shall see some Warship ranked games on the channel as well, and I'll be able to talk a bit more about those in detail. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.